I think it's safe to say that R. Kelly is an extremely disturbing man. Not only did he run a cult of women from his home and force them to live under his rules, but he made them fight each other when he got angry. He made them face a wall when they weren't being spoken to. And some of his employees were forced to turn a blind eye to this, or they would have a deduction in their pay. I mean, hell, one guy lost a whole week of pay because somebody ate R. Kelly's donuts. On top of it all, this man has been exposed by his victims and proven to spread STDs. So let's get into it. So R. Kelly is a 54-year-old American singer, songwriter, and producer who will probably spend the rest of his life behind bars. For good reason, because this man has been exposed so much, it's about time that justice is served. If you guys have not seen my video about Aaliyah, definitely go check that out because R. Kelly preyed on her when she was a minor, illegally married her, and you can even see him creeping in the background of Aaliyah's first album. If you guys have not seen that video, definitely go check it out. But today we're going to be talking about new details, disturbing details that have emerged from his recent trial hearings. R. Kelly has been in court all week, and all of these victims have come forward to tell the judge their stories, and they are horrific. So I do want to give you guys a trigger warning before we dive into this because there is a lot to unpack here. A 24-year-old woman named Faith has had a traumatic experience with R. Kelly. She revealed to the court that in February 2018 that she actually caught herpes from R. Kelly, and she obviously had no idea that he had these, but he passed them on to her, which you guys will see that is a theme. He has spread it all around. She told the judge and the jury, "My mouth had bumps everywhere, and my tongue was inflamed with bumps. My mouth looked disgusting." Honestly, no shade to anyone who does have STDs or STIs, but the problem is that he had them, he knew about them, yet he didn't tell the people that he was, I wouldn't even say hooking up with, because these people are victims. Faith met R. Kelly when she was only 19 years old. It was in March 2017 at one of his shows, and he came up to her and gave her his phone number. R. Kelly then invited her to come and visit him in New York in the month of May 2017, and they had their first physical encounter, something that she wasn't comfortable with, but he supposedly told her to take off her clothes and get on all fours. At that point, he started doing things to her private area, and she actually claims that it felt like she was at an OBGYN. And then he flipped her around and made her do some things like, some oral things, and he actually was filming her, something that he never got consent from her to do. Faith actually asked R. Kelly to use protection when they did it, and he said, "We don't need a condom. We don't need protection," even though he's got literal STDs. This part is incredibly disgusting because after that encounter, actually, R. Kelly told Faith that she's got a lot to learn. And he also questioned her age. He thought maybe she was younger than 19. He was quoted saying, "If you're really 16, you can tell daddy." What the? Oh my God. It's so disgusting because you know that he would have preferred if she was 16. Kind of like how he liked Aaliyah, who was literally 15 when they got married. It was during Faith's and R. Kelly's relationship when he was exposed for having a cult. It was back in July 2017, and actually at that point, R. Kelly was asking Faith if she would protect him. If you guys missed that news back in July 2017, it's actually insane to see how bad it was because R. Kelly was traveling with this group of women and forcing them to do things and to live in certain ways that were really concerning to those women's families and the outside public. Fortunately, Faith was never trapped in R. Kelly's cult. That's because she would go and visit him from time to time, but he did tell her about it. And he said that there were some females that he was raising. She also asked him if he ever gotten, physical with them, and he described them as family, but he confirmed that they go everywhere that he goes. Since the cult days, these women have come forward in documentaries like Surviving R. Kelly, and they have opened up about the toxic environment that R. Kelly hosted. Despite all of the red flags, Faith continued to travel with R. Kelly on the road, and she said that he was extremely controlling, at times not allowing her to use the bathroom for hours on end. At one point in January 2018, he made her take off all her clothing and then asked her about her physical history, and at that point he was sitting in a chair with a weapon and then made her do things to him orally. I don't even want to tell this part, but I have to because it relates to the next part. But pretty much the next month after that, she visited R. Kelly in New York, and again he tried to do it with her, but she was really uncomfortable, and she was actually like clenching her body so that he couldn't do things to her. And it actually pissed him off. And he ended up just kind of pleasing himself while watching videos of encounters that he filmed in the past. Like other women that he probably filmed without their consent. He was just, pleasing himself to that because she was rejecting him. When this story was being told in the courtroom, R. Kelly actually reacted to it, which this reporter wrote that R. Kelly really hasn't shown much emotion while in the courtroom, but when they were talking about this incident, he put his hand over his face for several moments, seemingly embarrassed. You guys might be wondering, why did Faith turn on R. Kelly? I mean, of course he was doing some really horrific things to her, but what was her breaking point? Well, Faith actually started pursuing legal action when she found out that she tested positive for herpes, and she actually appeared in the docuseries Surviving R. Kelly. But it actually looks like R. Kelly and his team tried to blackmail Faith because of this docuseries, because some woman met up with her at an Applebee's and had some files she wanted to discuss, because she just was trying to figure out who was telling the truth and who was lying about these allegations involving R. Kelly. At that Applebee's, that woman threatened Faith and told her if she moved forward with Surviving R. Kelly, that docuseries, that they were going to leak all of these images. And they did. There was actually a Facebook page titled Surviving Lies that posted all of those photos that she was just threatened with. That is why it's so important that we serve justice here, because so many lives have been damaged by R. Kelly's selfish actions. Like, this woman was threatened at an Applebee's, and then a whole Facebook page leaked photos of her body and videos of her body from times that she was going through really traumatic moments with this man. It's so damning. And actually, there was another person, well, actually a few people, who came forward and testified against R. Kelly, and these people were former employees who actually witnessed everything go down. We need to talk about this incident where R. Kelly made his girlfriends, his cult girlfriends, fight because they were twerking for cake and it pissed him off. One of R. Kelly's former assistants, Suzette Mayweather, actually testified that he saw R. Kelly make these girlfriends fight each other because he didn't like that they were twerking for cake at one of these all-female birthday parties. This party went down in January 2016, and it looks like R. Kelly made these women fight each other, and Suzette heard these girls wrestling and fighting upstairs, and she believed that R. Kelly instructed them to do this. After that party went down, R. Kelly actually told Suzette that he was mad that one of his cousin's girlfriends was a little bit more masculine. And that's one of the reasons why he had all of these women fight, because I guess he was just so pissed off because they were twerking for cake and then his cousin's girlfriend looked a little bit too manly for him. It's so crazy how this guy's mind works. And Suzette shared details about how toxic the environment was. She claims that the girlfriends would not move unless they had his permission. If there was a male present, Suzette would have to interact with the male, and none of the girlfriends could talk to them. When R. Kelly's girlfriends would walk into an elevator, the door would close and they would face the wall, not making eye contact, not looking at anyone, just they're only there for R. Kelly and can only acknowledge him. But Suzette didn't just witness all of R. Kelly's crap, she also experienced some of it too. There was one incident that left Suzette traumatized. One night in the studio, R. Kelly wanted some sweet potato pie, and he really wanted it, so he forced her to go and get some. She went to Walmart and she got a bunch of these pies and brought it back to him. He actually told her, "I thought you were gonna fail your test." Very manipulative. They actually ended up getting into an argument because supposedly Suzette spoke to one of R. Kelly's girlfriends about their relationship. Whenever Suzette was telling the story, she was breaking down on the stand because she claims that the incident got so heated that she had to lie to R. Kelly about who initiated the conversation because she feared for her in terms of what the repercussions would be. I'm not sure if she's talking about herself, but I think she's talking about the girlfriend, and she lied about that incident because she was scared that R. Kelly would go and hurt that woman. And that was a huge rule that Suzette broke because one of R. Kelly's rules is that nobody could speak to the singer's girlfriends about their relationship. Suzette claims this particular incident was the first time that I had ever seen R. Kelly really that upset, noting that she received a fine for breaking the rule. It was not the tone, it was the look in his eyes. So that's something that she can't get out of her mind, was how R. Kelly looked in that moment, because it kind of seems like this man is soulless. Another one of R. Kelly's former employees, Tom Arnold, also testified against him. What's interesting about Tom is that he actually worked for R. Kelly for over 8 years as a studio manager, but he ultimately left his job because he was docked a week of pay because he booked a male Disney World tour guide for the singer and his girlfriends. He said nobody was available, but R. Kelly insisted that, everyone around him has to be female, but there was only one guide and it was a male one. He literally lost $1,500 in pay because R. Kelly wanted a very last-minute trip to Disney World, and there was the male tour guide, which, what? It goes back to his insane rules that literally his girlfriends cannot be around any males or look them in the eyes. So they can't go on that tour because that guy is a dude. Tom is the same employee who shared that they were all fined, all the employees, because somebody ate R. Kelly's donuts one time. So this man's got a crazy ego and some major insecurities. Like, if he can't have his women around any men, and that if people are eating his donuts, everyone gets a fine. They can't go and be replaced. There's one more person I'd like to talk about today because a bunch of people have been testifying against R. Kelly, and actually the first male to testify against him, Louis, has come forward. We've actually talked about his story before. If you guys have not seen that video, definitely go check it out. But pretty much R. Kelly picked him up at a McDonald's and he ended up essaying him and harming him. But nonetheless, Louis and R. Kelly were close. They had a more than 10-year-long relationship, which started at a McDonald's drive-thru because R. Kelly saw him, they started talking, and they exchanged numbers there. Like I just mentioned, Louis was physically harmed by R. Kelly, and if you want to go watch my last video, you can get more details on that, but I want to share a story that Louis told the court. So during a visit at R. Kelly's home, Louis and R. Kelly went out to one of his detached garages. He had a boxing ring in there and exercise equipment. R. Kelly actually snapped his fingers and a young lady crawled out from under the boxing ring. She crawled over to R. Kelly and gave him oral pleasure. He told her to do the same to that kid, Louis, and he did it. And actually, Louis testified that he didn't mind it, but he didn't like that R. Kelly was there. Like I just mentioned in my previous video on that situation, we talk about Louis' physical interactions with R. Kelly, and it actually turns out, we learned in this hearing, that R. Kelly filmed him as well. So it looks like R. Kelly filmed everyone, and I don't know if it's so he can go back and watch it later, or if it's for blackmail, or probably both. And the thing about R. Kelly and a lot of people who harm other people, they get this relationship with you. They develop this bond with you like nobody else, because nobody else is like, taking advantage of you like this. And I feel like that's how R. Kelly got away with everything for so long, because he gets in their head and he makes them do his dirty work. Lewis testified that as their relationship got stronger, he called me more like a brother, like I was his little brother. And it looked like this kid was so entrenched in R. Kelly's BS that he was actually arrested and charged because he went to go and bribe a witness that was trying to stand up against R. Kelly. This woman was harmed by R. Kelly at the age of 17. He was promising her a music career, which is something that he did to a lot of his victims, promising them, studio time and help with like a record label and things like that, but he never really ever delivered. Because this kid Louis was out here trying to bribe one of R. Kelly's victims, he landed himself 15 years in prison. Prosecutors are trying to get him less time because he is testifying against R. Kelly and, sharing a lot, because, these two had a 10-year-long relationship, so he knows a lot about R. Kelly, and they're trying to give him, no jail time or a little jail time for this bribery because they're all attributing it to R. Kelly himself. There are still a lot of people waiting in line to tell the court their side of the story, and it's important that we hear them out because this man used his stardom to lure in these people. He held them captive and he manipulated them, took advantage of them, and made them do his dirty work. He is one of the worst people I've ever heard about in the music industry, and I think it's important that we all understand this man because he cannot come back from this. It's not okay and it's not safe for anyone. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It was a tough one to talk about because these crimes are so serious, but if you guys have any other video ideas for me, here is my email below. I'm going to be keeping up to date with this situation and the court hearings because there's a lot coming out every single day. So if you guys want updates, make sure you subscribe to my channel, but I will see you guys in a new one soon. Bye guys.